Namaskar and welcome to NFL Masala. I'm your co-host Anant.
And I am your other co-host, Rakshak. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 10 of NFL Masala, where we talk about all the latest happenings in the NFL. I think we need to change the adjective with
A metric ton.
a metric
A
ton,
metric ton of salt.
or in layman's term, a shitload of spice. Because
Yes.
boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we have in mind today, my man?
Well, we got two big pieces of news now. Both of them are trade requests of star players of NFC East teams. Yes, we are being very specific because it is a once in a couple of years type of situation where you have two star players of like the same division asking for trade outs, trade requests. And so what's happened? The first team with the Commanders, Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Commanders, he has now requested a trade out of Washington because he's a free agent. He's I think around 30 years old. Um, and he wants to be rated as one of the top 10 wide receivers in the league in terms of average annual contract value, which he technically deserves. Now, the Commanders are also looking in that same area, but they are slightly hesitant to offer a 30 plus $1 million contract, which is what he's asking for. Commanders are only offering 27 million. So that means that this standoff is going to continue probably well into the practice season, well into preseason, maybe into the beginning of the offseason because because when you look at um, this entire situation, it is a very difficult situation, right? There are multiple ways that this can play out. Commanders, they could blink and just give McLaurin what he wants, right? Even if he signed a Metcalf type deal of like 4 years, $132 million.
Mhm.
Um, that would probably be like the most likely scenario of keeping him in. But McLaurin could also play out this last year and then become a free agent at the end of next year, and then play the market that way. But how much are people going to offer a 31-year-old wide receiver when you look at players like Devontae Adams, players like Mike Evans, who's into his 30s? They they don't really fetch as much as you would think for a wide receiver in entering his 28th, year, age season. So it is very it's very tenuous. It's a very tenuous situation. That's what we have here. So that is the first bit of news. Scary Terry officially putting in a trade request with the Commanders. Now, if the worst case scenario, Scary Terry leaves, he still plays he still plays this season, right?
Mhm.
Because he's not holding out. He's still playing this season. But if he leaves at the end of next year, then it significantly reduces the Commanders' ability to make repeated attempts into the Super Bowl. I mean, they were one game away from the Super Bowl this past year in Jaden Daniels' rookie year. So, assuming Jaden Daniels maintains or even improves on his past rookie year, on his rookie contract, they still have 4 more years, right? That they can utilize to get to the Super Bowl. They should be going all in, but it's a as I said, it's a very tenuous situation. So in the worst case scenario, if Scary Terry leaves at the end of this year, you could be looking at a a 1 maybe 2 more year rebuild because you need to enhance the wide receiving core. When you look at when you look at the Commanders' receiving core, it's not very pretty.
It's
Besides,
they're old people. No offense, they're old people. You have like a
yeah,
fat I'm sorry, but you have like the chubby
burnt
Debo
chicken nugget.
Samuel.
That's Debo Samuel. Yeah,
It's like it kind of reminds me of like the Luca meme where people like enlarging him to be like fat Luca instead of skinny Luka Doncic
hmm
because of his fitness, and then of course leads to my Mavericks doing the most stupidest thing ever by trading him to the Lakers, and now he's all fit, and I'm like,
right,
good lord, he's gonna cook us up.
right.
But and then also, if I remember, who do they have like an old man Zach Ertz. The only youngest people I see
hmm
are like your running backs and Brian Robinson
And
Jr.
Luke McCaffrey.
You can't win with this roster. You honestly,
Yeah,
I mean, you can win some games, but you cannot make a big push. You need to bolster on the youth. I don't know what the Commanders are. Yeah, and I mean, yes, you're trying to go in a win now situation with a young QB like James Daniels, but you cannot sacrifice experience. You cannot sacrifice youth and higher skill level than for experience. It works barely 50% of the time.
right. So, like when you look at what the Commanders have on their depth chart, besides Scary Terry and burnt chicken nugget Debo Samuel, you have Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, the old decapitated corpse of Michael Gallup, old decapitated corpse of KJ Osborne, and a bunch of other like backups, right? So you don't have the depth that you would need if you let go of Scary Terry.
Mhm.
So in this scenario, they should sign a long-term extension for Scary Terry, but they should also continue to draft more skill position players, more wide receivers and more tight ends, just to build up that depth chart with young, talented players, so that in the future, when Scary Terry does leave, you can be rest assured that you have a good young crop of wide receivers to come through. Anyways,
And, yeah,
that is
and
the Scary Terry situation. Yeah,
true.
go
And
ahead.
just to name a few, like if you wanted to take a look at the 2026, I did a quick look on the wide receiver rankings for the 2026 draft, right? Next
hmm
year's draft, you're having someone like Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, Carnell Tate, Denzel Boston from UW, and Makai Lemon, along with Antonio Williams and Eric Singleton. I mean, like there will be a couple of names coming up, so just hold on. Give Scary Terry the money because he deserves it.
hmm
But this does not. Oh man, we have to talk about this one.
This
So
is, yep.
I mean, this goes out to my boy Abhishek Ramani, our NFL Masala correspondent and Cowboys fan. Oh boy, we cannot wait to have him in the NFC East podcast. I think I honestly think, you know what? I'm going to sacrifice my airtime for him because he needs to vent out. It's okay. This is a safe place. Um, so I can't believe I'm still reading this. So it first started up with a Diane Rossini tweet saying that the
hmm
contract, like the relationships or contract extensions, has been torn. I mean, it has not gone well. The relationship has deteriorated to the point where the pass rusher is considering drastic measures. This is from Diana Rossini yesterday, or I think no, it was today at 10 o'clock when I was going through this.
hmm
4 hours later, according to Jordan Schultz and Ari Meirov and every NFL insider, my Dallas Cowboys pass rusher and Pro Bowler Micah Parsons made a request to be traded. And he says it all in his Twitter/X. And he talked about, yes, like just to name it parts. Yes, I wanted to be here. I did everything I could to show that I wanted to be a Cowboy and wear the star in my helmet, which means I want to be in a place of mediocrity. Okay, got it. I wanted to play in front of the best fans in the sports. and make this America's team again. Yeah, good luck. I'm adding my. You know how you have like your own annotations on this one. So the team my pops and I grew up in cheering for all the way up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The hell is this shit? Unfortunately, I no longer want to be here. Good. I no longer want to be held to closed door negotiations without my agent present. I no longer want shots taken at me for getting injured while laying it on the line for the organization, our fans, and my teammates. I no longer want narratives created and spread to the media about me. I had purposely stayed quiet in hopes of getting something done.
Thank you, Green Bay. You're officially going to get Micah Parsons. We're going to run the NFC.
You know, the
Green Bay finally gets. I mean, we do have the cap space. We have $30 million.
You do have.
cap space.
I think we're okay with that. I mean, for us Eagles fans are trying to be like, we do the funniest thing if we get Micah Parsons. Like, by the way, we don't have enough cap space, and plus, I think we're okay with the weight that we're getting reports that Jihad Campbell literally wants to hurt everyone on the field. But like, on the brakes, bro. And Nolan Smith is coming back, so I think I'm happy with what we have. But like, here's the crazy part: both sides, they acknowledged that there had to be discussions. And I was like listening through this like on like the YouTube on like some YouTube stuff. Apparently during one of the meetings, they were talking like Parsons, he said to make $21.324 million this season and his 5th-year option, not the as a defensive end, not the reported $24 million that he would have made if he was a linebacker. The team had no comment on his request. And they hold it, and they have the ability to hold his rights through 2028 via franchise tag. However, last year the tag would cost them the quarterback tag figure. Remember, the biggest contract that they have is Dak Prescott, which I think is an overpay, and then the second highest is CeeDee Lamb. And quote unquote, the relationship between Parsons and the Cowboys have worsened the past 4 months, but Jerry Jones was in the belief that the sides were close to an agreement. And apparently, Parsons said his agent, Dave Mulugeta, approached the Cowboys prior to last year but for an extension, but the focus, pay Dak and pay CeeDee. Fair enough. And he said when 2024 ended, he told Parsons told his agent to tell the team that they were ready to negotiate. And then he says this. This is like the part which I kind of have to, agree with Parsons. You hear the words coming out of my mouth. My agent informed me I should wait for other deals to get done because the price would only go up, but I didn't care and wanted to secure myself as a Cowboy long term. But while in Abu Dhabi, Parsons called Jones and requested a meeting. Parsons wrote on social media that it was about leadership, but somehow the conversation turned into him talking contract about me. Since that meeting, Myles Garrett got paid, Max Crosby got paid, and TJ Watt got paid. And Parsons said that he told Jones that Mulugeta would call the Cowboys, but that when the agent reached out, the team felt that a deal was already done. And he talks about how many times they have tried to reach out to Stephen Jones. And they said, like, oh, they were already in the assumption that the deal's already been made. And apparently, and remember the infamous quote that he said during training camp, just because we signed him doesn't mean we're going to have him. He was hurt 6 games last year, which is actually 4. Seriously, I remember signing a player for the highest paid at the position in the league, and he got knocked out 2/3 of the season in Dak Prescott. So there's a lot of things you can think about, just as the player does, when you're thinking about the committing and guaranteed money. And and of course, Jones was heckled by fans saying to pay Micah. And then with that being said, After repeated shots at myself and all the narratives, I have made a tough decision. I no longer want to play for the Dallas Cowboys. My trade request has submitted to Stephen Jones personally. And after that was being sent, 3 teammates, CeeDee Lamb, Trayvon Diggs, Demarion Overshown, and Giovanni Thomas changed their avatars to include a picture of Parsons. And CeeDee Lamb had a story on IG said SMH, and then said, "Never fails, dog. Just pay the man what you owe them. No need for the extracurricular." Like, dude, I'm you know what? This is a major clusterfuck. Or this is a lesson on how to not pay your players early. Like, what the hell? Dude, I'm sorry to say that even when Parsons was like healthy and even though Parsons was like injured and all that stuff, like, dude, he is a generational talent.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best pass rushers. And yes, your defense sucked because you were basically ran through the door, like ran through the mat, but I'm just confused. What I'm gonna swear, pardon my French, but what the fuck are the Cowboys doing? What are they doing?
Yep.
Your thoughts on this? Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's the same. It's a situation that we need to see that's developing. But yeah, let's move on, shall we? Before we this is all conversation for the NFC East episode.
Yeah, I think
where we can have deep conversations.
Yeah. So what do we have with this today, man?
So today we are going to be breaking down the NFC South division. Not a big surprise as to who the division winner is going to be. We all know who it is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's the August allergy. Bucks.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I
mean, like you were saying about how good teams pay their players early. This is what happens when a good team pays their quarterback money, but also supports it with good to great talent. And that's the Bucks this past year. I mean, like Baker Mayfield showed that he could be a top 10 QB in the league this year. He had an MVP caliber season, and he had flaws, but he really stepped up to the plate when it mattered. And the playoffs, while it wasn't successful, it was still it was a 3-point loss to the Commanders, right? On a last minute field goal drive by the Commanders to win. It was tied 20-20. So it was a last minute field goal drive to win. Now, yes, there was a key fumble that was fumbled by Baker, happened by Baker, and that did ruin the momentum for the Bucks. But given what he has shown in the regular season, it's really nice to see a young quarterback improving after getting a second chance. So it really gives players like, I don't know, Anthony Richardson, right? If he fails this year, maybe he has some hope of going to another team next year and trying to improve his mechanics, right? Maybe he just doesn't have the right coach. Maybe he needs a good coach. And that's what Baker Mayfield found in, Todd Bowles and, more importantly, Liam Cohen. Because I think Liam Cohen did the right thing. They focused. I mean, this was really this really started with Jason Light, their GM, but Liam Cohen really utilized this major strength as an advantage, as it should be, right? Like all good teams, the Bucks' strength is their offensive line. Right? They had the second highest adjusted line yards allowed or generated, and the 5th lowest pressure rate allowed across the entire season, and 3rd lowest QB hit rate. Now, they did have higher sacks, but that was more Baker than the offensive line. And they still provided him with the 5th most amount of clean pockets. So basically, they gave him all the time. They gave him really clean pockets. They did not let pressure get to him, and when it did, more often than not, it was turned into sacks rather than into hits, which is more like sacks are more on the QB than on the offensive line because QBs who tend to hold on the ball longer tend to generate more sacks. So the offensive line did their job and they did their job phenomenally, which is what allowed everything else to function, right, Dr. What do we always say?
Build
Build through
through
the
the
trenches.
trenches. You gotta build through the trenches. And I think honestly, like as much as I hate Baker Mayfield for the college past and whatnot, he is I have to say he's a top 10 QB. And you know what? I gotta beat the dome moment right here. I'm just gonna say it off the bat. I think he's gonna be a candidate for MVP. I
Okay,
I
okay.
think I mean like because about the upcoming weapons, which you need to talk about, man, because I'm so pissed at their draft. Like
Yeah,
everything has leveled
yeah.
up, but when I say like I'm so pissed at their draft, meaning it's also like another way of
Good
like
piss.
it is so good piss. Like I'm
Hmm.
like, how did they get this? Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, in terms of their draft last year, I think it was a home run selection getting Bucky Irving. I was pounding the table for the Packers to draft Bucky Irving, and look at what he's been able to do. He's a rising star in both NFL and fantasy football league. If you look at the latest like fantasy football ADPs or average draft position in fantasy drafts, he's going in like the top 10 picks.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he is that excellent. Third in running back yards generated amongst all running backs with more than 15 games played. Fourth in EPA per attempt. So that means he is generating yards, he's generating points, and he's eighth in explosive play rate, which means he's generating explosive plays. That's exactly what you need in a home run hitter. And they struck gold. I think they drafted him in the third round last year. Either second or third round, they drafted Bucky Irving.
Yeah.
So
Well,
fantastic selection. Like literally what Jameer Gibbs was to the Lions offense is what Bucky Irving is to the Bucks offense. And Liam Cohen untapped his potential. So all of this put together, the wide receivers, the running back, the offensive line, everything put together helped Baker achieve that MVP caliber season. Right? Ninth in completion percentage over expected. Third in overall passing yards. First in interceptions. So that is something that you have to improve. But he had the fifth highest touchdown to interception ratio, which is more important than just interceptions, right?
mhm.
Because if you're scoring a lot more touchdowns and scoring higher amount of interceptions, but if you're scoring a lot more touchdowns, then it's sort of excusable because you're willing to take that risk, right?
Oh
If
yeah.
you're scoring like if you're scoring 28 touchdowns and you have 15 interceptions, that's when you know you're not a really good quarterback. And he was fourth in EPA per dropback. What does that mean? He is consistently scoring points per dropback. That's what that means. So again, yes, he has high interception rate, but he is scoring more points than he is throwing interceptions, which is exactly what you want from, which is more often what you want from a star young quarterback. Is how many points can you really score with the amount of potential and the players that you have on field.
Yeah.
Now, the big question that we have to ask for this upcoming year was this Liam Cohen or was this Baker Mayfield?
That is a very good question.
Right? Because as I talk about who their coaching staff, I'll get into this in a little bit, but when you look at when you look at this is the most sorry, yeah. Let me just go back. This is the most important question that we have to ask is for the upcoming year, is this Liam Cohen or is this talent? Now, let's talk about the defense. Defense, I think there's a clear uh, weakness. And I don't know if you've paid attention to a lot of Bucks games, but you can clearly see this. Their rush defense is carried by Vita Vea,
Literally. The,
literally carried by Vita Vea.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem that they have is their secondary
They were
was
coked.
it was not good, right? It it was a very unhealthy inconsistency in their secondary performance, which is what allowed them to be, which is what forced them to be 23rd in passing DVOA allowed.
Mhm.
So when you look at that passing defense metric, you need to ask yourself, was this the secondary, and is it, or is it solely the secondary's fault, or is the secondary not performing well a symptom of a larger problem? And I think that when you look at it being a symptom of a larger problem, I think that's where the answer lies, right? Because the secondary had very poor performances. They were middle of the pack, 14th highest in 20 plus completion percentages allowed, 11th highest catch rate, which means they were just allowing the receivers to catch the ball, fifth most first downs allowed. And that's the key thing because the more first downs you allow, the more the drive continues. So
Mhm.
in a scenario where the NFL is run by scoring points, right? But it's also run by uh, having an efficient offense in terms of getting first downs and getting points. If your opposing defense is constantly allowing you to get first downs, well, A, that's going to gas your defense.
Mhm.
B, that's going to give momentum to your opposing offense. And
Yep.
C, that keeps your offense off the field, allowing, again, the opposing offense to score even more points. So that is an incredibly important metric to look at when you look at an overall secondary's performance. They also were allowed the fifth highest red zone touchdown rate and the
Yeah.
fifth highest adjusted catch rate. So you're
I
looking at all these yeah, go ahead.
I think like I would say adding to some people like that there I think in starting from like the beginning of the season I think there were like injuries to that Bucks secondary when they had that
Yeah.
hit. I don't know if it was like Carlton Davis when he was with the Bucks. No, he was with the wait, was Carlton Davis with the Lions last year or no, that was someone else. But I know like Jamel Dean, he was the guy getting out. And they had to roll in, and their only star was Antoine Winfield Jr. Like
Right,
that
right.
was like their entire secondary. And then later on, you saw like a little bit of an emergence of Zion McCollum, who I thought was like a really good late round pick that they were able to develop. And and I believe he's projected to be their starting left side corner outside.
Yes, yes.
And but and then I don't know who else, but I I mean like I thought like it was just like injuries, but I'm guessing knowing what the Bucks do because Todd Bowles, he he's I would say he's from a very familiar system in the Jim Johnson tree from Philadelphia. He was one of his assistants, and he was by the way interim coach for the Eagles at one point. But his defense it relies on bringing in heavy pressure, and also linebackers. You only had one good one in Levante David and Yaya Diaby. Most of the time, he's portrayed as like the outside Mike or outside Will linebacker. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, and you're asking him to play a defensive end. It's like you need to have like that's why sometimes you look for players in the draft who could also play the edge position well, but you also need to have someone who can play linebacker, or you just get two separate. It's either one at all, or you need to have two separate guys.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad you brought up Todd Bowles and his mantra to bring heavy pressure via blitzes, because guess what happened last season for the Bucks defense? They had the sixth highest pressure rate, again, heavy pressure, but guess what? With the number one uh, defense in terms of blitz rate, 45%. That means almost 1 out of every 2 dropbacks was a blitz, or pressure was a blitz, which
Mm-hmm.
means that defensive line is not doing its job. And I'm glad you brought up Yaya Diaby, because when you look at this defensive line, and specifically this front seven, I don't see many sack generating players. You see Vita Vea, he's your interior guy. He's the
Oh, and don't
main
forget
guy.
Kalijah. Where
Right.
was he?
Yeah, again, he needs to improve again this year, right? Logan Hall needs to improve again this year. Uh, there's only so much Levante David can do. They brought in Hassan Reddick to try and increase um, that specific. Uh, yeah, they try specifically to increase the sack total, right? But he didn't really perform that well for you guys last year, right? Which is why the Eagles let Hassan Reddick go at
I
the
think
end of last
like
season.
like Hassan Reddick did very well, but
Oh,
I think
okay.
it was because of because it was like the amount of like I think it was like the money that like Howie Roseman was like trying to I think like Howie was trying to give him like a minimum deal, but I think like Hassan Reddick wanted more, so I think that's why they made a trade to get Bryce Huff. But now
Ah,
that's
okay.
what I think it was more like a contract thing, but apparently Bryce Huff sucked. But lo and behold, I think Nolan Smith came out of nowhere and Jalen Hunt. Jalen Hunt
Mm-hmm.
was like a surprise one, but I know we'll talk about that later. But
Right.
I mean, like I honestly was a little bit disappointed when Kalijah did not. I thought like he would be one of those breakout stars like in his sophomore year. And I
Mm-hmm.
will actually want to bring up something like in this 2024 combined total tackles, 6 assists. Yes, you had 7.5 sacks, but where were they coming from? Interior pressure from Vito Vea. Who the
Mm-hmm.
hell, like, which is when we say when we're building through the trenches, you don't focus on one particular side, you don't focus on the outside or inside. You need to focus on all departments. It's yeah. I mean, that's all I can think of. And if you're allowing one person to like forcefully do this, you damn well better have others helping out because say if Vita Vea is injured, what happens to that pass rush?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Exactly. Exactly. It's heavily reliant on Vita Vea creating those pressures, and Clyde Kinsey comes in as a cleanup. You know, that's how you see it. So, yeah, clearly this needs to get rectified for this upcoming season. Their pass rush needs to become more independent of the secondary's performance, and the secondary overall needs to stay a little bit healthy. Now, going into what they've done to try and improve their team, you look at a couple of the signings like Hassan Reddick. 1 year, $14 million contract. They brought in Anthony Nelson on a 2 year, $10 million contract um, as an outside linebacker. They brought in who else? Bryce Hall, corner, depth corner on 1 year,
Shaq
$1.17 million.
Barrett, he signed I think he signed like another renewal contract.
Right, but I don't really see Shaq Barrett performing that much for Tampa Bay. She's like 34 years old. Levante David re-signed with Tampa on a 1 year, $9 million deal. Ben Bredesen, they're trying to keep their offensive line core situated, which is exactly what you need to do on a 3 year, $22 million contract, very cheap. Chris Godwin signed a 3 year, $66 million contract extension, not very cheap. So when you look at the players and the people that they retained, I thought that they would try and attack the pass rush with a little bit more vigor by going after, one of these prime pass rush targets who are still like flirting with their teams, right? I thought they would
Mhm.
go and make a big signing uh, for getting someone like TJ Watt or Max Crosby, maybe. I don't know. Maybe try and do something a little bit more than just getting Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
So then when you look at their draft, They drafted an edge rusher, but way in the 4th round. David Walker out of Central Arkansas. Another rotational pass rusher
Two edge
in
rushers.
Elijah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Another rotational edge rusher out of SMU, Elijah Roberts, in the 5th round. They only had 6 players. But here's where it gets enticing and exciting. I don't want to be all doom and gloom because this, without a doubt, this team is going to win this division. But let me rephrase my thoughts here.
Go ahead.
When you look at their efforts for improving their defense, it has been kind of hit or miss. Yes, you have developed Zion McCollum to be a really good starting corner. But when you look at your safeties, besides Antoine Winfield, you have Christian Isian. Who exactly is this
This
dude?
Christian Isian.
I mean, he's a safety out of right. Yeah, I mean, but he's not a. They could have went after one of those. Yes, but they could have went after some of the young, talented safeties from either last year or the year before in the draft or in free agency. Right? I mean, Javon Holland was right there. He was a free agency. They could have, completely rectified this entire secondary by signing him, but they didn't. They're relying on Jamel Dean to improve. And Tyke Smith, and they're listing ESPN is listing Tyke Smith as nickel, so we'll see how that goes. Now, the move that they made that I really, really loved was Benjamin Morrison.
That was a
corner, 2nd round.
The fact he fell down to like early 2nd round, I was like, dude, some team is going to take him, and he is going to make that defense better. And don't forget, they also got a UDFA in Shiloh Sanders. So, and apparently,
yes,
he's showing off a lot. But I'm like, calm your jets, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when you're facing up against like of Mike Evans, maybe Sterling Shepard, Chris Godwin. I don't know if Godwin's coming back in. Oh, don't forget their 1st round pick.
Mecca.
How? How do they keep getting away with this shit?
That's what I'm saying. So their first 2 picks. I was gonna get to Emeka in a little bit, but yes, from a defensive standpoint, they have tried, but from an offensive standpoint, they've done a fantastic job. Bringing in Emeka Egbuka as your 1st round pick to potentially replace either Mike Evans or Chris Godwin at the end of next year. I mean, Jalen McMillan was supposed to be that dude, but
he's getting there.
He's getting there. He hasn't, he was tied 13th in receiving touchdowns with 8 touchdowns last year, despite having not a lot of opportunities on the field. So he's getting there. And then they also went and drafted Tez Johnson in the 7th round, speedster out of Oregon. So we'll see what role he fits, what role he plays in. But yeah, offensively speaking, I really like this offense. I love Bucky Irving. I think Rachaad White is a really good RB2 power back type guy. I really like their receiving core. I like Cade Otton as a as a young tight end who can who's developing, right?
Yeah.
So I like this receiving core. I love the offensive line. The defense is where I have a lot of questions. Can they improve the defense once they get into the playoffs? Because make no mistake, at the end of this year, they are going to make the playoffs. They're going to win this division. They're going to go 11-6 or 12-5, depending on how the other games go. But I mean, once they get into the playoffs, do they only go divisional round? Because in my eyes, if this defense cannot stop an offense like the Eagles or the Rams or the Commies or the Packers or the Lions offense potentially, right? Then they're not going to go that far in the playoffs. They're probably going to go divisional round now because it's not a defense that I'm really particularly high on because they didn't really significantly invest in the pass rush. They're still a draft and develop type of organization, which can work if you're the Eagles, but even the Eagles go out and sign, you know, pass rushers. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I think they win the division easily, but it all depends on the defense. Now, my Chandler Player of the Year is going to be Bucky Irving, and he's my dark horse Offensive Player of the Year.
I would not be surprised by that. But I also wanted to add into the point that they had the opportunity to take a linebacker, and they did not address it in the draft at all. I was thinking when we did our mock drafts, yeah, Jahad Campbell. Jahad Campbell was right there, but apparently he fell.
Or Jalen Walker.
Jahad Campbell.
They did not. They could have gotten Carson Schwarzenegger.
I'm shocked. I don't get this move unless you're banking on Reddick to like go full out.
No, I don't know if you. What's their replacement plan after Lavonte David? Like you said,
I have no idea. Do they find one in the draft? I don't even know. To be honest, you know what? Let me just do a quick look. 2026. Like I want to know what the 2026 linebacking core is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't know if that's even good of a draft class. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say. And next, we gotta talk about
the Penix of it all.
After all, it's a meme where I slammed my Penix through the car door.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, and you know how this season started. The 2024 season first started with Kirk signed this big ass deal, and then the Falcons in the draft. You go quarterback in the first round, and then you barely address some parts of the defense. And apparently, it looked like it was like we didn't know like what the hell the Falcons were doing, but they had a 6-3 start. Best start since 2016, but since then they cratered to the bottom. They had a 4-game losing streak via turnovers and poor defense, and it was so bad that Kirk Cousins got benched on week 15, and Michael Penix had to take over. He showed some flashes, but sometimes it was not enough. The season ended with an overtime loss on week 18 against the Carolina Panthers, along with side by side with a Buccaneers win, therefore eliminating the Falcons from playoff contention. How bad was this team? I mean, like, how crazy was this Falcons team? I'll tell you how. If you want to look at offense, their offensive DVOA, they were 14th ranked. Passing at 16, rushing 4th ranked DVOA via Bijan Robinson. No doubt about that. Total offensive yards, 6,272. Points for, they had 22.9 points per game, which is 14th. Yards per game, they were 5th with 370. Basically, most of the time it was like tale of two quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins had 3,508 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Even with like some shaky offensive line play outside of Jake Matthews, like they were able to move the ball. He was able to target like his best players in like Drake London, maybe Kyle Pitts, and then Darnell Mooney and I'm trying to figure out who else it was there. But I would say the turnovers and Kirk Cousins getting sacked and this injury that he had, it led to Michael Penix taking over. He played like 3-4 games, 775 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and had 1 rushing touchdown. And if I wanted to talk about who the offense was for the Falcons, I believe there are 2 people. Number 1 has to be Bijan Robinson. He was literally the running back monster that the Falcons hoped him to be, and he delivered. And he had near 1,456 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns. Drake London was the best receiver overall. 1,271 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, followed by Darnell Mooney. But how do I put this, man? It's not good. Like Kyle Pitts, we expected Kyle effing
every
Pitts.
time, man. Every time.
And here's a shock. For 74 targets, it was targeted 74 times, 47 receptions. Like, what's the percentage on that? Like,
wait, what did you say?
Kyle Pitts, 74 targets, 47 receptions.
That's a 64% catch rate.
Yeah, and even before that, like the third best wide receiver was Ray. The third best receiving group part was like Ray McLeod, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London 1,271, and Darnell Mooney 8 shy of 1,000 receiving yard. I think like I mean like the Falcons had a really decent passing offense, like by name and by paper only, because we all know Drake London was like their best target, but it's safe to say like the offensive line was very shaky at best. I was actually going through some very interesting numbers. This guy from Reddit did a complete master breakdown of the offensive side for the Falcons. I thought it was incredible, and let me share with it a brief bit of it. Give me 1 minute. There it is. So, one of the things we look at, pass blocking, they were 72.8%, like 9th. And another big part of it, like, again, the major one was Jake Matthews. Then later on, they had like Matthew Bergeron, Dalman, Lindstrom, and Caleb McCrary. But like the times when Dalman was like when their center was out, you had to have Ryan Newsill like come and step in, and he allowed he had 1 sack but like 10 pass rush, but like they were beat a lot. And Kyle Pitts, to be a full tight end, you need to do 2 things: you need a catch, and you also need a block. Kyle Pitts had a pass blocking grade of 35.5%.
Yikes.
His previous was 69.7.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was bad. And I thought like this breakdown was very interesting. 3 district splits for Kirk Cousins. Weeks 1 through 4, 850 yards. Weeks 5 through 9, 1,450 yards. 13 touchdowns, 3 INTs. That's when he had the swag Kirk. And then weeks 10 through 15, it was bad, especially the game against New Orleans. Kirk tweaked his throwing hand, and it went downhill from there. And he was responsible for 16 interceptions and 13 fumbles.
Unbelievable.
And I mean, Michael Penix, yeah, people say like, yeah, he's only given like a 3-game thing, but this is why they drafted him early. And Zach Robinson, this was like his first year. But if I wanted to give more criticism, I have to give it to the Falcons defense, because I'm sorry, what the fuck was going on with that defense? Like, Look, you want to talk about stats? Defensive DVOA, they were 29th ranked. Passing defense was 27th, rushing 24 points against 23rd. Where is this defense, Raheem Morris?
Unbelievable.
And yards allowed per game, 345. Like, their defense allowed 423 points per game, ranking them 23rd in the league. Like, the Falcons are only able to generate 31 sacks. Remember that draft where they had Penix and they did not? And I'm like, and we questioned every single time who the hell were they drafting? Like the Luke I call it Rook, and then who else? You were relying guys on like Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, AJ Terrell. Bro, it was bad. Like reading through this, I already have a brain aneurysm. Their third down conversion, 45.3% of their third downs opponents converted. They were second to dead last. Run defense, it was so bad. Caden Ellis was the only the best leading tackler, led 110.5 tackles, 5 sacks, and an INT. Interceptions, Jesse Bates. And then after Jesse Bates had 4, everything went down. It was bad. Like, so bad. And with that, they had a big offseason and they had to look through Jesus to figure out what the hell they were doing. So some of the signings I thought was interesting. They re-signed Mike Hughes, their corner, 3-year, $18 million. Then, of course, the best name ever, Divine Diablo, linebacker from the Raiders, 2 years, $7 million. Leonard Floyd, 1 year, $10 million. I thought that was pretty good. Then they reinforced on the since live Kyle Hinton. They re-signed Morgan Fox. I think Kadero Hodges is back. Michael Ford from the Browns. Sir Lauren D. Alford. And then another good one I thought I liked was who else? I think they brought DJ Chark ever since we heard the news. Like I think like Darnell Mooney was out with an injury. I think he's gonna be on IR, so I think that's why. And then I don't think there were like any big ones, but they had 3 big extensions. Ryan Musial, 2 year, $9.5 million. Jake Matthews, 2 year, $45 million. That's their left tackle. And Liam McCullough, their long snapper, for a 4 year, $5.78 million. Now, who left? Grady Jarrett, their defensive tackle, for a 3 year, $42.75 million to the Bears. Drew Dahlman, their center, goes to the Bears. Rondell Moore goes to the Vikings. Richie Grant, and like just to name, like these were the big ones. And I found out like, oh yeah, Avery Williams came from the Falcons. He's with the Eagles now. But not only is he running back and apparently corner, he's a big special returns player. But the Falcons, I thought they had a very good draft. They did. It's like we're all clapping our hands, like, oh, they finally did something. Right? I'm like, about damn time. So their number 1 pick, what did they do? They addressed the edge because Matthew Judon, where the fuck was this guy? He's on, and then Justin Simmons is and knowing fully well that Justin Simmons is a free agent. And he's stressed in the Kay Adams show that he wants to be in Philly, but Philly has yet to sign him because he wants to be a Fangio, I bet. But yeah, the line, like the first pick, Jalen Walker, easy. You needed help on the linebacking spot. You needed help on your edge. Welcome to, you're basically staying in the state of Georgia. So it's not the perfect fit, but they need an edge rusher more than anything. But Walker, you saw what he did for the for the Bulldogs. Like we
were clamoring. Someone.
And he fits in the new defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbricht's scheme. Like it could be 3-4 or 4-3, very versatile. He took 50 sacks. He took 50 snaps at corner for Georgia last year. I didn't know that. And he could also play, and he can, and like side by side scheme wise, he can play linebacker. Then they double down and get James Pierce Jr. in the first round. I thought, and after a trade with the Rams, I thought that was like one of their best picks. because you're getting like a pure bull rusher. You fit into that rotation, or you're building the rotation from there. And then third and fourth, they go safety. Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman Jr. Xavier Watts. I thought Xavier Watts was like one of the best safeties. And the fact that Andrew Makuba was taking over Xavier Watts, I was shocked. I was legit. I would kid you not. I'm like, you did. And I mean, Makuba could have fit there either, but I'm like, yeah, I think you got the best safety overall. And Billy Bowman Jr., knowing what he did at OU, like he is underrated as hell. And then Jack Nelson, of course, offensive tackle. You stick with the mantra of building through the trenches. And I think that was like a round 7. Best player of it. It was best player available. 6'7", 6'7", 314 pounds. I mean, you also have Jake Matthews and Caleb McGrary. They're going to be covering the blind side, but he fills the depth position. I really like this draft, although they had like very few picks, but they focus on what needed to be addressed, which is that defense, because what the hell was that shit last year? Any pick that you liked?
I really like that Xavier Watts pick because when you look at their defensive performance, that's exactly what they needed to fix after letting go of Jesse Bates, right? Or no, they signed Jesse Bates, sorry, but after letting go of Justin Simmons.
Simmons.
Yeah, they really do need to rectify that safety position because it is an underrated position. But if you have good safeties, it can do wonders for your defensive performance. When you look at all of the really, really top like secondaries, they almost always have really good safeties.
Oh, 100%. And I think, like, again, when I mentioned, like, there were a ton of coaching changes, but the biggest one I want to talk about was Jimmy Lake. The old defensive coordinator from last year, he was fired after one season. Yeah, Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell was a good secondary, but they were dead last. And Jimmy Lake he left players like, if you commit the crime of leaving players out of their best positions, that's a fireable offense. Get your ass out. And Jeff Ulbrich, the former interim head coach of the Jets. I mean, he worked, and I think like he does. I mean, you also put him like just focus on as a defensive coordinator. He can turn around this defense. It'll be close to mid. It'll be way above. You know, I mean, you're dealing with low expectations, man. Like the only place you can go up is higher. So I think that's a good one. And some inside promotions. I think like for season expectations, I had I previously, I think I stated earlier that the Falcons were planning. I have the Falcons going around like 10-7. I think they can go 10-7. That's their ceiling. But it all depends upon that offensive. Like, can Zach Robinson really push Michael Penix to his potential? Can he? And does defense? And it all depends upon that defense. And if I got a dark horse rookie and Penix stays healthy, I'm pushing for Jalen Walker, a defensive rookie of the year.
Okay.
Because he's special. I think he can.
Yeah. No, I agree. Alrighty. Let's move on, shall we?
Yes, lead the way.
Next up is a much more enigmatic team in the Saints. Because for the first 2 weeks, I thought that this team was going to go to the Super Bowl. For the first 2 weeks of last season, I thought that this team would go to the Super Bowl, given those offensive performances. I mean, they had back-to-back 40-plus point games against pretty good teams as well. And it seemed like that offense was just unstoppable. But it turns out that it was all a sham. It was basically like a Ponzi scheme blowing up right in front of your face.
It was fake news, believe me.
Exactly.
It is fake news.
Exactly. Derek Carr completely flopped, and he marched all the way to retirement.
I'm not going to say anything.
if nobody gets the reference, it's Saints go marching in.
Oh!
So yeah, this is NFL Masala. This is way too late at night. Let's
That was good one. I have to admit.
But yeah, when you look at this overall offensive performance, 23rd overall, 29th in pass, 14th in rush, that is where you see the potential. And that's because they have Alvin Kamara, right? Like the Saints offense was 13th in rushing EPA per attempt, but they were number one overall in second level yards per attempt. Do you know why?
Why?
Pretty easy. Because of Kamara. 13th in explosive play rate amongst running backs who played more than like 14 games. So clearly, this was the Alvin Kamara show, and it still basically is because who the hell is their quarterback now, right? Well, I'm gonna get into that a little bit. So, offensively speaking, their passing offense just completely fell flat on its face. Yeah, yes, you have Chris Olave, but besides that, you had like MVS, who was MVS. You do have Rashid Shaheed, who is the better version of MVS. So yeah, this passing offense, man, I was
We hate it.
surprised. I was surprised to see how many points they were able to score before. But now it's really just reliant on Alvin Kamara outmaneuvering any defense that he faces. Now, speaking of defenses, the Saints' defense wasn't much better either. But it's the opposite. Their pass defense was pretty good, 12th in the league in DVOA. Their rushing defense was pathetic, 30th overall.
Mm.
And when you look at why this pass defense was so great, it was because of their secondary. Eighth in explosive, expected points added per target. So lowest expected points per target. And then eighth in lowest success rate. But they were the seventh highest in explosive play rate and allowed 14th highest 20 plus completion percentages allowed. So the issue is their safeties. So what did they do to try and rectify this? Well, they brought in a safety in Julian Blackmon because why?
The Colts could not pay him for some reason. Or what?
That and the Honey Badger called it quits. He retired as well. So when you look at who they have at the safety position now, you have Julian Blackmon, and the other star purchase
Justin
that
Reed.
they made. Exactly. So Justin Reed, they signed from the Chiefs on a 3-year, $31.5 million deal. A really good signing, might I add. Now, this gives them the potential to have a really solid safety um, tandem.
Yeah.
That's besides the fact that they brought in Isaac Yadam as a backup corner on a 3-year, $9 million deal. And they brought in another safety in Ugo Amadi, who was on the Seahawks. So when you look at their secondary performance, it was really their corners that excelled, and it really showed up. Alontae Taylor was fantastic. Kool-Aid McKinstry was really good, locking down that side of the field. Alontae Taylor, I think, had a really nice season last year. So I was excited to see him perform. So they did improve their safeties. I will give them that. They brought in Justin Reed as their to anchor that secondary with veteran experience, kind of like what the Packers did with Xavier McKinney, and then they paired him up with a younger free safety in Julian Blackmon. So overall, pretty decent moves in the secondary. Now, when you look at their pass rush, that is something that they could also improve on, and that is something that they did. They retained Chase Young on a 3-year, $51 million deal. They retained Cam Jordan on like a 1-year deal as well. Then they brought in Jonah Williams on a 1-year deal, and they brought in Jonathan Bull. So They did make moves, mostly in just retaining their young talent, specifically in Chase Young. But they also re-signed Nathan Shepard on a 1 year, $8.5 million deal. So when you look at their front seven, it is pretty good. Devon Godshaw. Now, that is someone that they traded for from the Patriots, which I kind of liked. I think Devon Godshaw was pretty good for the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they have Christian Barmore, but Devon Godshaw is also 30 years old, so he's not the long-term answer. Nathan Shepard is also not the long-term answer. So you're kind of resting this situation on Kalen Saunders, who's also 28. So this defensive line has been on the older side for quite a long time, especially when you have Cam Jordan, 36-year-old, right? So when you look at who the young players are on this defensive line, well, it's basically Chase Young, who's still 26 and signed
Mm-hmm.
that 3-year deal. It is their second round selection in Brian Brzee, first round selection in Brian Brzee, who had he had 7.5 sacks last year. But again, just 25 total tackles as an interior defensive tackle who's trying to be the star of this defense. I don't really see that as really good performance. Now, in terms of their linebacking core, they still have Demario Davis. They did draft Pete Werner, also Jalen Ford. So when you look at the overall moves, uh, especially bringing in talent, they've done a good job with the secondary. They've done a decent job with the defensive line. I thought they would target more younger players,
Mm-hmm.
like Daye Odeyingbo from the Colts. That I think would have been a good selection. But is it enough? Does it really matter? Because at the end of the day, no matter you know who they sign in on defense, it's the offense that's going to be the biggest question, right? When you look at how many players they lost and tried to replace, they lost Jamal Williams. They replaced him with uh, yeah, they replaced him with someone. Who did they replace him with? Sorry, Cam Akers. There we go, Cam Akers. They also brought in Jawan Johnson, a young tight end on a 3-year, $30 million deal. So they are trying to bring in some offensive pieces. Now, the big question is going to be when who is the quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at Derek Carr,
Yeah.
he was literally on his last legs, right? And he retired. So that allowed Spencer Rattler to take some snaps in some games. He didn't really show that much other than a couple of flashes, especially in the Packers game. So when you look at this draft class of quarterbacks, besides like the top one, as it turns out, in Cam Ward, you really didn't have a lot of starting NFL caliber quarterbacks. And what did this new regime do? Well, they went out and they shored their offensive line. So that was a really good thing in Calvin Banks. But then they went Tyler Shuck. I think this was a very perplexing move in the second round, too.
I'm sorry. Tyler Shuck is a day 3 pick. He is
Right.
not. I mean,
Like if they can develop him to what he is supposed to be from their eyes, then good on them, right? But from a lot of the NFL experts and draft experts that we see across the league and from ourselves, right? We really saw him as a D3 pick. So him being drafted in the top of the second round was a huge surprise, especially to one Mel Kiper.
mhm.
So overall, their draft was pretty decent. I mean, they did try and beef up the defense. Um, but I don't know. Tyler Shuck, is that the guy for them? Or is it going to be Spencer Rattler? That's going to be the biggest question for this year and biggest question for the new regime. And yes, I did say new regime because they did fire Dennis Allen after the debacle and the disaster that was the Derek Carr years and situation. They hired now Kellen Moore, Super Bowl champion from the Philadelphia Eagles, as their new head coach. So bringing in a young offensive coordinator as their head coach for uh, for this foreseeable future. Now, they also brought in Doug Nussmeier as the
Yep.
offensive coordinator. And then they also brought in Brandon Staley as the defensive coordinator. So interesting. Brandon Staley was a decent defensive coordinator. He was not the greatest
Not a
head
good head coach
coach.
at all with the Chargers.
Right. But there's also one name that you will recognize, um,
So
and his name is Jari Evans, who has been promoted to assistant offensive line coach.
Jari Evans.
Yes, that Jari Evans, who was the Saints guard for a long time.
Wow. I'm looking at Jari Saint. 2006 to 2015. Had a couple of stints and then he returned back to New Orleans as a coach. Like, goodness gracious. Jari Evans.
I don't know if you recognize him, but I definitely recognize him from the Packers. He was there for 1 year, as we said in 2017. Man, wow, we are getting old.
But let me say this: like I looking more at the breakdown. There are a couple of names. I remember Doug Nussmeier. He was part of the QB coach to help out Jalen Hurts when he was with the Eagles, and TJ Pagnetti. He, alongside with Jess Stoutland, was part of the run game part. So TJ Pagnetti.
Okay.
When I heard like TJ Pagnetti and Doug Nussmeier following Kellen Moore's like, yep, that's probably from there. And it's kind of like how it's evolving into like that Nick Sirianni tree. Now you have like Shane Steichen going on one direction. Technically, the worst defensive coordinator, in my point of view, Jonathan Gannon, because he couldn't do shit in the fucking Super Bowl. I don't care what Austin Butler says, but I'm calling Gannon as it is. He fucked us over in the Super Bowl when it mattered the most. And technically Brian Johnson, wherever he is right now. And now you have Kellen Moore and his staff. So it's like it'll be very interesting to see it, especially when you have a quarterback. Here's my my player to watch out for, like not as a Shandar player, but to keep an eye on. I think it could be Tyler Shuck. I think so because Tyler Shuck, when he was at Texas Tech earlier, he was more of a pass. He was more the traditional pocket passer. And I think with Kellen Moore, he will try and find something more along that way and emphasize more on a run attack. And based on what he did in Philly and the times he did with Dallas, you could see that. And oh yeah, I forgot the LA Chargers.
All right. So let's wrap this up now. When you look at when you look at who, sorry, when you look at who's in the quarterbacking situation, right? Who their quarterback is? Is it Tyler Shark? Is it Spencer Rattler? Having that ambiguous question is going to lead to a lot of inconsistencies in play, especially if we, especially on the offensive side. So I think that this year is going to be a trial year for Kellen Moore to just see if any quarterback on the roster is the quarterback of the future, right? It's not like they have the number one overall pick, which they can just invest 3-4 years of resources into and time. They really have Tyler Shuck, who they believe is going to be the next big guy because they drafted him in the second round. But yeah, it's really a lot of open questions. So it really depends on their performance, how successful the Saints offense can be. This defense, I think, can be successful, especially in the pass rush, but I don't really see any hope for the future because that defensive line is so old, that front seven is so old. They need to bring in more young talent there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know if they have the front office for that.
Yeah.
But so when you take a holistic view of this team, I think that they don't win more than 3-4 games. I think that this is a multi-year rebuild, getting out of all the old contracts, getting positive in the cap situation is something that they should look forward to for the foreseeable future, right? Investing more in young talent and shedding off some of the older players. So to me, I think it's 3-4 wins, maybe, and then Alvin Kamara somehow still maintains his cachet as a top 10 running back.
Right.
All right, last but not least, Panthers.
Okay, the Carolina Panthers. What can you say about the Panthers? I mean, yeah, you just got, even with Dave Canales as your head coach, a dismal season again. But hey, you may start at 1-7 for a second year in a row, but then you improved to 5-12, so success, I guess. Offense was so bad. They were 23rd in the league in points scored with 341 total points, 20 points per game, 22 turnovers lost. And it was a messy quarterback situation because Bryce Young played 14 games and he had Andy Dalton take over at some point in between. But then after an injury, Dalton steps back. And Bryce Young, 2,403 pass yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, sacked 29 times. But 249 rushing yards, 40 out of 43 rush attempts, and 6 rushing touchdowns. I think like one of the biggest things was the sacks. Like, good Lord, they allowed 36 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And the rushing attack could have been helpful. But I thought like they were relying so much more on Chuba Hubbard. And I think they had like one point, they had like Miles Sanders, they had Jonathan Brooks. Oh yeah, Chuba Hubbard. I think Chuba Hubbard late in the season got on IR. So literally their running back room was on IR. And it was mainly like Rasheed Blackshear. He had to like take care of a lot of the runs. But and apparently the receiving core, if your biggest receiver is like Adam Thielen, then I don't know what to tell you. I'll like, if you want to talk about like stat wise, it is insane. I'm pulling it up. Adam Thielen led receiving, 615 yards. The second one was Xavier Legette, 497, 49 receptions out of 84 targets. Are you freaking kidding me, bro?
So I think it was a case of 2 different offenses in 2 different seasons. When you look at like the first 8 games of the season, they weren't really good. But when you look at like the last 5 or 6 or 7 games, I think that's where this team really shined and this offense really shined.
Which I think can be the case because I think like the offense didn't improve like the later part of the season, especially in the overtime game with the Panthers and the fact that they almost beat the Chiefs and that Bucks overtime game. Those were times where I saw like this Panthers team is a legit threat. And hell, they almost beat the Eagles that one game. If Xavier Legette does not make that drop and he catches it, game, set, match, Eagles are doing NBA. They're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And I think like when they started using more for like Bryce Huff's ability to run, then I thought like this is the type of style of offense. Dave Canales Dave Canales can make this improve. But defensive-wise, how the hell does Ejiro Evero still have a job? They were one of the absolute worst defenses ever. Dude, you want to know something shocking? They gave up 534 points. They broke the 1981 Colts' record of 533. Worst point differential in negative 193. They surrendered 31.4 points per game average.
Unbelievable.
Like, how? It's like, what can they do? Because, like, if the offense can't do anything, like, what the fuck can their defense do? Like, yes, I mean, and apparently, like, their only good players, I thought, like, yes, even when you had the likes of Jadeveon Clowney, you had Xavier Woods, J.C. Horn. How the fuck is your defense that bad?
I think they severely underperformed. J.C. Horn has been.
I mean, like,
there's not much you can do with just like one player on the secondary.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there isn't that much. I mean, I don't know if I can go like for a full DVOA breakdown. It's just. I'm just like if I wanted to talk DVOA, and negative, they finished the season with negative 11.6, which is 24th. Offensive, they were 28th. Defensive, they were 31st. Like, they struggled. And if you want to talk about fourth down conversions, 14 for 30. Third down, 76 out of 211. Yards allowed per game, dead last. They allowed 405 yards allowed. Like,
yeah, I think it's a lack of talent. When you look at this entire roster, you see Derek Brown, who is their standout.
He was their only good player.
Right. Then you look at nobody except J.C. Horn.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, Jadeveon, like, you know the phrase, it's only good on paper. But if it does not translate onto the field, what the fuck can you say?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get into it because it's just, let's say it was mid. It was below mid. It was garbage. Yeah, but let's see. But what did the Panthers do? They had to. I think they did a huge overall. Like, staff-wise, defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero last year. This year, he's still the defensive coordinator. How does this man still have a job? I will never know.
No, I think he's a developer of young talent, but
he's
the
a
talent
developer.
that they have is not good.
You can develop young talent all day, but it's bad. But their senior coaching advisor, I think they had like Jim Caldwell on their staff, which is good. He can help. He's helping out Dave Canales side by side. And they did get a new they did get a new general manager first, Dan Morgan. Those that remember that name, 2001 to 2007, he was with the Panthers as a former linebacker in that old Panthers defense, along with Zach Thomas when they made that first Super Bowl run. And as a general, and him and Dave Canales, they had all intentions to focus, rebuild that defense, and also build through the trenches. What did they do? Biggest bags. Patrick Jones, outside linebacker from the Vikings. Bobby Brown, defensive tackle from the Rams. Good depth piece. Tershawn Wharton, defensive tackle from the Chiefs. And Trayvon Morik, safety from the Raiders. I thought that was an interesting pick. 3 year, $51 million. And then Christian Rose. Christian Roseboom from the Rams, linebacker, and then Rico Dwaddle from the Cowboys. And some of the names that they signed, they actually brought back Hunter Renfro. They brought Hunter Renfro. He's officially he was about to retire, but then I think like he was convinced like not to, and apparently he's dominating training camp. So I'm happy for his. I'm happy. I wish him all the best. And Colin Granger, backup tight end. They re-signed Rasheem Blackshear, Nick Scott, David Moore, Dan Chiesa. And I remember during the season they traded away Jonathan Mingo. But the extensions, the biggest ones they had, they gave J.C. Horn a 4-year, $100 million. Tony Tremble, 2-year, $10.5 million. Austin Sober, safety, 1-year, $3 million. Andy Dalton, 2-year, $8 million. J.J. Jansen, long snapper, 1-year, $1.4. The guys that they left, Xavier Woods goes to Titans, their safety, another big one. Dane Jackson's corner goes to the Bills. Miles Sanders, Eagles legend, goes to the Cowboys. Shaq Thompson, their linebacker, goes to the Bills. Velus Jones goes to the Saints, and Ian Thomas, tight end, to Raiders. And some of the big free agents are still there available. Josie Jewell, Jadeveon Clowney, Eddie Pinheiro. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the draft, they had a very interesting, and I said, like, what the hell were they doing in the draft from their first round pick? They started off with wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona as an 8th pick. Everyone thought, like, oh, they're going to get Mason Graham. They're going to get, like, a defensive tackle because they needed to – I thought they would need help to improve on their defensive line, but they go wide receiver. So it's like maybe aren't they convinced that Xavier Legette, but you pair him next to – you have 3 big boys, Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, and Tet McMillan. McMillan has a size 6'4", 219 pounds, minimum speed, but he is a possession receiver. He had like 174 catches for 2,721 yards, 18 touchdowns past 2 seasons. He'll be a good red zone threat for Bryce Young. Then they go second round edge, Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. Thought that was, and I think they go back-to-back edges on second and third round. Nick Scorton and Princely Uman
Milan. Yeah.
Milan. Those were great picks.
Mm-hmm.
You're building on that edge rusher because you know Jadeveon Clowney's gone and he can't do shit. Then they bring Trevor Etienne, running back from Georgia. I thought, I could see that happening because they needed a running back because Chuba Hubbard can't do everything. So you probably have someone who could play that speed or that'd be a bruiser. Then Lathan Ransom. I think this is an underrated draft pick from Ohio State. I thought he was like one of the best. I mean, after you move from Xavier Woods and he's competing with Trevon Moore, but yes, he's not that fast, but he is strong and good against the run, which the Panthers were horrible. He has spent 5 years at Ohio State. He's experienced Cam Jackson, defensive tackle from Florida, Mitch Evans, tight end from Notre Dame. I thought that was basically they've drafted big guys. 6'5", this guy, dude, 6'5", 260 pounds. He's from Notre Dame. I remember him. Oh, I remember Mitch Evans. He was literally the Notre Dame Irish's entire offense.
Mm-hmm.
He was their entire offense. He led the Irish with 43 catches for 421 yards last season, and he only had 3 touchdowns. So you can see 2 tight end sets, him and Jatavion Sanders. And then last but not least, Jimmy Horn Jr., wide receiver from Colorado. So they go wide receiver for this one. And apparently, I think he's like showing off at camp. And I believe, no, he's not related to Jim Horn, I believe. Yeah. And like he started like 1 year. He began his college year in South Florida and before he transferred to to Colorado to play under Deion Sanders. I think it's a good pick. Basically, you're looking at average, but he's a good possession receiver at best.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the Panthers coaching changes. One second. I don't think there wasn't that.
Yeah, there wasn't that many. I think they continued
They
this
they
coaching
just
staff.
they
Yeah.
continued with that, but I think they brought Keyshawn Coleman as an offensive assistant, Kevin Peterson, but Ejiro Evero is still there. So they're still in the process of finalizing everything. But I think the season again another rebuild. I think they go another 5-12 at best again. Maybe they can compete 7 wins at best, but 5-12 is what I think realistically. Again, my Shandar Play of the Year. It's for me. It's between Tech McMillan and Bryce Young because Bryce Young, he is the star. I think he's been given a lot of good talent to work around with. It's up to him to see how he can use it. And Tech McMillan, I think he'd be a top wide receiver as a rookie for sure.
Yep. Yep.
I think it's going to be targeted a lot more.
Okay. All right. I really love their draft. I like that they're going all young and on their offensive line. They also brought in Trevor Etienne as a backup for Chuba Hubbard, who's their main young starting running back.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I really like this offense, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And let's move into the final division predictions before we shut down this episode. Yeah, going into this division, I agree with you in the Panthers. I think there's a lot that that we still have to see in terms of development. So I agree with you. 6-11 is what I'm saying. 6 wins, 11 losses. Probably 7-10. Maybe compete for the second spot in the division, but I don't really see them going any higher because the Bucks are clearly by far the best team in this division.
They're
I
way
think
ahead.
it's 12-5. Yeah. I think they're going to 6-0 in the division. They just have a much better roster, much better uh, position to get into the playoffs and make some noise in the playoffs. I think second place is going to be the Falcons or the Panthers, but I really see them both at a similar level. They both have young offenses that need time to develop and grow, young quarterbacks that need time to develop and grow. They have defenses that are shaky and inconsistent, but are trying to grow with young talent. So they have some young players that need to develop. And I think because they're in that developmental stage, here I go using that word again, because they're in that stage, I think they probably go. Both of them go like 6-11, 7-10. Maybe one of them swap here or there. And then last but not least, Saints go 3-14 because I just don't really see any hope in this quarterbacking position. But yeah, what about you?
I think like again the Bucks win the NFC South, but I think ceiling wise they can go 13-4.
Wow. Okay.
I think because if that offense is clicking, they're shooting it also in cylinders, and the defense just needs to make one play. I think they can pull it off. Falcons they go 10-7. I think that's their ceiling at best because Michael Penix, he'll have a little bit much more better to work with, and the Falcons defense will actually do something instead of doing dog shit. Panthers 5-12 again, but they could go 7-10. They could. They have the opportunity to play spoilers. Saints. Why the hell did Kellen Moore go over there to begin with? Knowing that you wanted to work with Derek Carr, but then Derek Carr, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so it's an impossible thing, and I don't think Kellen Moore should be fired after one season, but they're gonna go 12-15. I mean 2-15.
Yeah. Like you said, I don't think Kellen Moore deserves to be fired after the season. I think he needs at least 3 years. He's in the Dan Campbell position where he has a very young, very like he has a team that is on at rock bottom basically, and who need a rebuild from all points. So I think that it's going to be very interesting to see at the end of this year how they really improve. All right, well, that's going to be it for us today. If you guys have enjoyed, please leave us a review on one of the 4 podcast platforms that we host our podcast on: Apple, Google, Spotify, and Podcast.
And you can also find us on YouTube, so make sure you like, share, subscribe, and click on the bell icon for more notifications. You can also find us on our social media platforms, which is Twitter/X, Instagram, and Threads at the handle at NFL Masala 2020, all lowercase. That is at NFL Masala 2022.
And we're going to hit you guys with our signature outro. Go Pack Go.
And fly, Eagles fly. Take care and have a good night.